G'day everyone, this is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag overnight in the markets. Obviously we're just seeing Bitcoin get pretty close to 70k, 69,800 I think ish, was the 69,900, somewhere around that. It just got to 69,879 Binance. So little bit of profit taking, a little bit of open interest dropping towards the top here, but generally still pretty strong. A few people buying in at the top, which feel their pain. Decent topping signal starting to come through here, sort of more powerful than these ones. This stage, a lot of selling liquidity has been taken in the last day or so. Interesting liquidation levels, sucked up a lot of the more recent stuff with this move. I do, however, suspect that we will hit 70k. There's a decent level up into 70 and a half. It would kind of make sense to get into there. Now, obviously, on the shorter time frames, doesn't look like there was a hell of a lot in there. Looks like there's a fair bit below, but of course, when we zoom out, still haven't tapped into this level here. So that's the sort of up into 70,500-ish. There is a lot in that region. Even up into 71 to 73. So as I said before, I think if we do push just straight through this level, and that is a possibility, then I would expect probably things could get a little crazy. So we could push straight past this, but I don't know that we'll go straight to like 80k or anything. If you're in along from here, then taking some profits up around the 74k mark, you see decent sort of topping signals on higher time frames. It's probably not a bad place to take some profit. So yeah, that's pretty much where things are at the moment. See, there hasn't been much come into the charts up to that point for a while. So we could actually get a reversal from this point, just suck everyone in, think that we're going 70k plus. I think 70k will be a big sort of mental barrier for a lot of people. Once it breaks 70k, there's going to be a lot of people getting in. Yeah, as you can see, even this one here is showing up to about 70,500. That's where most of the 100x leverage positions sit over the last day on Binance. Same for the last 7 days. There's a lot down to the downside though. We'll get into it a bit in a minute, but yeah, upside seems more likely at the moment. Sort of, we did clear those levels at this stage, but I've had on the charts as sort of critical levels. Don't know that we've expanded BBWP. Yeah. So BBWP has just started to expand today. If it closes where it is at the moment, above that that wick there, then I would expect more upside. Note that we have come into this wick here and we've basically reclaimed. I mean, realistically, you'd expect it to sweep the top of that wick if it's going to come back down. If it's not going to come back down, it doesn't have to. It can just plow straight through it and come into this vector candle in here. So yeah, look, all-time high 74 and change. Well, yeah, just under 74 on bybit. Look, I mean, that's still looking pretty positive. If we measured this out and said, okay, this is 3 levels. Let's say it went into 72. Let's say it went straight to 74 and then had a pullback. Use the first run. Actually do a line on the first pullback. And the target would be 82. So look, that's possible. That's a decent pullback. If we pull back in the next couple of days, then wicks down into that 64.4 are still well and truly on the cards for a typical sort of 3-leg pump. In which case, your 80k comes into play. I think that is a decent target. What we can't really know from this is what will happen if it just goes mental with heaps of money flowing into it. So good thing about this daily closing where it is now, if it does, still 4 hours left, I actually think it'll potentially close a little bit higher. That stochastic momentum will have crossed the upside. Typically that will lead to more upside. So I do now think with this cross that more upside is on the cards. And the 80 advanced decline line is crossing the moving averages back up to the upside as well. So that's a positive sign. I'll just, bullish smart money still positive. Global liquidity is still flat. BTC longs has started to increase a little bit. So the guys here that were expecting more of a dip, potentially that's what they were doing. Looks like they might have screwed up. Who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting. What I'll actually be looking for in terms of finding a top is BTC longs actually start dropping off quite heavily. Typically, when you're getting close to a top, they will do that. We haven't really seen that yet, so I think this was just an anomaly. I wish I had noticed it after this one, because that one there would have been a pretty good signal for a pullback. And yeah. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, it looks like that might be all we get for that particular pullback. One thing I do need to look at though, so I don't know if I mentioned it in the live yesterday, but I noticed at some stage yesterday that on the shorter time frames, I think I did cover it actually. Anyway, in the pre-market, no, it must have been after because it was during the day yesterday. I noticed that obviously this is a pretty strong open in the pre-market, and don't often get that sort of move in the market. That was, I think, getting close to 1%. Yeah, 0.74%. What it did do, both on the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, it actually reclaimed the vectors that were in here. So the fact that it did that and didn't follow through, and the fact that it did it in pre-market, did suggest that we were going down from that point. Now it's a pretty good play, really. Like if you want to keep this thing chugging sideways, then do that. Make your move in the pre-market, pull back, take everyone's money in the during the day session, and rinse and repeat. There's certainly an argument that things aren't looking great at the moment, but at the same time, like, I'll just go back to the daily. Equal weight isn't dropping that much. Stochastic momentum's actually almost flipped to the upside on the equal weight, and even the advanced decline line, if it finishes here, it has finished. So advanced decline line's actually ticking above that moving average as well. Not necessarily out of the woods, but generally that's a pretty good sign. So yeah, it looks like it might have just been a pullback in time. S&P 500, again, it was the same sort of deal on the shorter time frames. This is actually, if this turns around here, I'd actually call this hidden bullish divergence on the stochastic momentum, because it will, if it does turn around here, it will turn around slightly lower than this bottom here, and obviously that bottom was a lot lower than this one. So BBWP is basically resetting. Things are primed for pretty nuts move to the upside, to be honest. Caveat is, if this does break down and BBWP is increasing, then it could be a pretty big move to the downside. So we haven't got any super sort of confirmation in terms of which way this is going to go. The only thing that we can sort of go off is the equal weights have been pulling back, and they're getting close to resetting on stochastic momentum. So could be a few more choppy days. We've got a lot of news coming out this week. Could move the market. So jolts tomorrow. Tonight, US time. Job openings. So that could move the market. GDP growth could move the market. Personal spending, personal income, and core PCE is probably going to be a big one. Interesting, they're forecasting an increase. So what we could get is, if this actually comes in low, like 0.1 again or something like that, or even 0.2, that surprise to the downside in core PCE could actually push the markets quite a bit higher. So IWM, Yeah, we mentioned this yesterday. So this vector candle here, would have been surprised if it had left that. IWM's moved pretty well today. Like buck 64 is nothing to sneeze at. Interesting. It's almost a trend line on the stochastic momentum there. Definitely, like if it was going to turn around and go on another run, this would be a good base to do it from. Would make sense. Higher lows, higher highs all the way through. And you would expect it to actually break this level and probably go back into the old support line, which from memory, that was the support line. Oh no, that was support, that's resistance. So old resistance, that was a massive Wyckoff distribution in there. So if we break that level, IWM could go on a pretty decent run, pretty massive run. Yeah, it's probably worth having a look at Bravos Research, BRAVOS. They did a interesting video today. They do a lot of sort of comparisons to historical markets and interesting comparison regarding inflation corrected S&P 500 versus inflation itself and what tends to happen in these kind of markets. And it looks pretty similar to what was happening before the dot-com boom and before the depression as well. So still got to be on the lookout for black swans and stuff like that. But at this stage, we may not have had that final push yet. And it's looking more and more like that, which would potentially push the big crash out into 2025, late 2025. But I reckon it's going to be a flip-flopping grind over the next year. If that's the case, it's going to be a lot of triggers that are going to go off, and then the market will get saved, and until it finally just can't take anymore and just breaks. The other thing to keep in mind is Trump is massively favored by the betting markets and stuff and some of the polls to win. If he doesn't win, holy shit, I think that's going to get crazy. Like civil war type crazy, and then markets will go mental accordingly. So that could be a trigger. Obviously, war still in the Middle East, Europe, Middle East. They've managed to keep that quiet leading up to the election. They've managed to drop oil into the election as well. Oh, by the way, XLY, XLP is still increasing. So this is probably our biggest sign that there's nothing structurally going to bring the market down at the moment. KRE still strong. And I think most of the banks have reported earnings too. So that's a pretty good sign. Home builders is basing at the moment, which is good. DJI Gold has had a bit of an up day, mainly because DJI's held its head a little bit there. VIX is kind of hovering. It's definitely sort of floating up. Some might look at it as floating down. I don't know. It's putting in higher lows and lower highs at the moment. So tough one to read, but momentum is to the upside still. It's just momentum on the VIX isn't really worth too much. It's hard to get a gauge from momentum. If we closed, is that today's reading? No, it's not. That'll come out later. I'll be having a look at that just to see what the skew's doing. Hang Seng. This is coiling. And momentum's breaking to the upside. This might be it in terms of the pullback on Chinese market. That wouldn't surprise me. Kind of looking at the volume side of it, volume's been low for a week now. So something's going on. You just got to kind of wait for the actual reaction. A little bit sus that this is happening at the high, but generally an accumulation or a coiling market at the high will sort of lead to more upside if it breaks out, and it'll lead to a pretty decent upside. UK market, yeah, can still suck a dick. Japanese market, that's a pretty strong bullish candle in my opinion. Big turnaround, stochastic momentum's low. Japanese market's probably going to go on a pretty decent run from here, which makes you wonder if they're doing anything with the currency at the moment. Just look at TLT, looks like it's basing. High yield junk is a bit of a green day. It's kind of following the market, so that's healthy. Bonds have, like high yield corporates have pulled back already. So if the market did turn around and go to the upside from here, it wouldn't surprise me. The bonds are kind of done their thing, but obviously they're not really. It's not like they've actually changed trend yet. Need to see a higher high and a lower low and a higher low. Sorry, first. US 2-year, 10-year still flat. So 2 years still pushing, still grinding a little bit higher. I'd expect that to come up to 4.3 roughly. So 10 years probably close to its limit actually. Could keep going. I mean, we're still 75-ish basis points lower than the actual rate at the moment, which isn't a huge difference for the 10-year versus the cash rate, if I'm using that term correctly. Copper, flat, coiling. This is all sort of, in my opinion, it is gearing up for a pretty decent move in the markets, and you kind of want to see copper break out reasonably soon, actually. Like, its momentum is shifting to the upside. BBWP is reset effectively. Advanced decline line's just ticking over the moving average. Yeah, I think this is due for a bit of a pump. Would make a lot of sense, but if this is a fake out on the markets, then it's a pretty freaking good one. Big day for gold again, but it didn't break to new highs. So that suggests gold might be done at the moment. If it does push higher, it's probably off the back of kind of retail and low volume, like it did through here, to be honest. Mainly because if you're getting that much volume at the highs and it's not pushing through, then you've got a lot of big guys selling in here. There's a lot of people taking profit. Who they're selling it to, I got no idea, but Possibly retail, I guess, or CTAs. But yeah, the fact that that didn't break through is kind of probably a bit of a topping signal on gold for the time being. Interestingly, that's probably played out. If you look at that as one leg, look at that as another leg, and use this for the third leg. We're not far away from that. Actually, that's actually come pretty freaking close, to be honest. You could argue that we've already done that last move, so gold's potentially done for a little bit. I may actually take a little bit of profit on my super account. Get around to it. Silver. It's interesting. Silver hit our resistance level. Well, nearly did. Pretty freaking close. And has pulled back. Probably what we could get on gold, actually. We could get a coiling market on gold as well, to be honest. If it's not going to drop when there's that much volume coming through, then it's the same sort of thing here. So we actually had, once we got to these tops, we actually had an increase in volume. Didn't really drop too much. Sideways movements, really big volume, not much movement. And then dropped a little bit on decreasing volume as people would take in profit, and then just rip to the upside again. We could get the same sort of thing happening. It certainly looks like a freight train at the moment. Hard to stop. Oil, that's an interesting day for oil. A bit unexpected. Someone's been screwing around there. That would have annihilated so many longs that had stop losses under here. Wow. Oil would be. I'm just glad I don't trade oil, especially in the lead up to an election. The amount of times that oil is low leading into an election, and then we'll jump after it because the voters don't like high oil prices. Bit of consolidation around the high here for Dixie, so it does look like this might be the reversal point. Aussie dollar kept dropping. That's interesting. We got here CPI for the Aussie. Whoa, that's interesting. Actually forecasting another drop in CPI. That's tomorrow. Euro. So Euro had a decent day. AED Euro has dropped through again. Shit. Where's the Japanese? Yeah, this. I'd be surprised if this keeps happening for too much longer without some sort of intervention. In which case, the Japanese market will probably run even more. Yeah. Mag 7, decent day. It's kind of finished at the high of the previous day, though. It hasn't broken to a new all-time high yet. It's still looking pretty strong. Again, probably just going to coil most of these things at these kind of levels. Tesla, some profit taking maybe. Wouldn't blame people if they got in down here. Yeah, most of the big guys are still kind of eking upwards. Just got to be careful. Like a lot of these, reclaiming these vectors and not following through, you really want to see the follow through after doing that. It's the same with Bitcoin. You want to see proper follow through. Otherwise, it's just the big guys selling into FOMO. Have a quick look at ETH. ETH hasn't really gone along with Bitcoin to the same level. Again, recovered this vector candle here on the daily. There's going to be more up in here if it wants them, but ETH's, Jesus. ETH's been a real struggler. I doubt that this is a distribution. It looks like an accumulation more so. But yeah, it's ETH's the crypto that everyone forgot at the moment. All right, quick look at oh yeah, this indicator's getting a lot closer. Don't worry about these numbers. That's this is for Nero, but I'm getting close on this. This is just a long only strat that it's running at the moment. So one thing I have been watching is a couple of these smaller caps, the newer smaller caps that are on Bybit, just to see how the money's moving across the market. And like a couple of nuts ones. Actually, I'll add it in here. Nero ETH. Like this one here yesterday just went ballistic. Hang on, I'll just hide that for the time being. That actually started moving before Bitcoin really did. Nearly 100%, well, 78% move in a day. It's pretty good. But yeah, you'll get smashed if you try and jump in at the top there. Even at this point here, that looks like a pretty good turnaround, but tough point to pick a bottom on one of these things. You can see the volume that just started coming through on this. Same thing looking at Pepe. There's a lot of sort of interest coming in around this bottom here. When you start to see volume increasing around the bottoms, that's a pretty good sign that you might be getting close to a bottom. So something I'm going to be watching out for, because it's probably going to give more of an indication of the overall how the market's potentially going to move than Bitcoin, given that Bitcoin is kind of a bit manipulated at the moment and Wall Street's involved. It's, you know, it's going to be pretty choppy, I think. But yeah, this little pullback here on Bitcoin, I think, is going to obviously that hasn't been calibrated for Bitcoin, but I'll just get off things. Yeah, I mean, it's crossing back inside the Bollingers. It has done that in the past here. You kind of want to be looking for turnarounds on that inside Bollinger, which for visual sakes, I would normally put at about 1. I would normally put at 3. So yeah, it's traveling up between these two Bollingers for the most part. Pullbacks into the 50 moving average on the 15-minute have been good. Good bounce off that one yesterday afternoon. No, that's That was this morning. Yeah, right. When was it yesterday? That it was Sunday. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was around here that I was looking at it in the morning, and you can see it trying to hold this 50, and the 100 moving average has actually been quite interesting over the last week or so. I've noticed the 100 seems to be a point that Bitcoin likes to find support and resistance at the moment. So if it does break the 50 and the 100 sitting right there behind it, just be a little bit careful. But yeah, are we due for another pullback into the 50? Maybe. Not necessarily expecting that though. I would like to see it break that 70 and at least clean up, potentially up into 70,500. I think that move would make quite a bit of sense. What I'll do is a quick measure. I'll just measure that leg there, this leg here, which is sort of the next time that it touched the 50 moving average. And we'll go from here, which is the second time it touched it. Oh, okay, that actually suggests we might have already reached the top. At least temporary top. Might get a little bit of consolidation here, which will be frustrating for a lot of people that are looking for that breakout. I mean, we did break this high. Looks like we could close below it. Excuse me. Close below here isn't great. I still think we'll push through. It's just how much of a pullback we get into this candle through the day. Pretty reasonable volume so far. So it looks like a proper move. It's tidying up the vectors on the way up as well for the most part. There's some vectors down here that it might want to come back to at some stage, but Bitcoin does not have to come back to these. When it's on its final run out of a consolidation area, it does tend to leave some vectors behind. So wouldn't worry too much about these for the time being. And more targets if we do see a proper rollover and comes back down. All right, that's about it. Sol's consolidating here at the high as well. So again, a bit of sideways consolidation at the highs is not a bad thing. That will tend to lead to a breakout to the upside. Obviously, it could lead the other way, but you know, if you're bullish, if the rest of the market's bullish, then yeah, consolidation at a high tends to lead to further breakout. Consolidation at a high, fake out to the downside, breakout. And you kind of want to see that flush before it moves up. You tend to get it on these shorter time frames. You do tend to see it. So again, fake out, move to the upside. Fake out, fake out to the downside, charge on up to the upside. Same sort of thing everywhere you go. Fake out to the upside. Didn't really fake out to the downside too much there, but yeah. So yeah, potentially a sideways day to be honest, or until it decides which way it's going to go. But it's looking pretty reasonable across the board. Like a lot of pullbacks on some of the smaller coins after decent moves yesterday. How much did Dodge move? Huge. Dang, 18%. Yeah. Could get alts in particular, could pull back quite a bit. Bitcoin itself, possibly not. Yeah. Look, overall, market's pretty bullish still. Underlying sort of fundamentals, there's nothing really showing up as being an issue. It's just where Wall Street wants to take profit and pull this thing back at the moment. And generally up by the look of it. Oops. Let's go back to the, hang on. Just want to see if the skew has populated. No. I'll be interested to see when that shows up as to what's actually happening. If that's ticking to the upside again, then I'll still be fairly bullish on the market, I think. If it's ticking to the downside, I think it'll just mean more sideways chop into the election, which this week probably will be a pretty choppy week. Could get some flushes, like flushing below this wick here. That wouldn't surprise me either. So moves down into sort of high 5,700s, even down into this 100 EMA, low 5,700s. This week would be the week to do it, and then move to the upside after the election once we got some clarity. But yeah, if at this stage, if Trump doesn't win, markets could go a bit mental. All right, catch us later.